Hey y'all, welcome back to Royal Owners Academy. Today's episode, we're talking about income taxes that make sense, you guys. I am here with the queen of virtual and viral. She's going viral and she does virtual income tax. Miss Shamica Johnson, you guys, a tax expert who helps investors keep more of their money when it's time to sell their commercial real estate. No confusing lingo, just straight talk you can save thousands on. So thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for inviting me again. Thank you.
You're welcome. You know what? We had so many comments and feedback. Even had a couple referrals.
Well, yes.
So yeah, we had to run it again.
I know. I wouldn't have thought I'd be doing taxes over here in Alabama. I have people in Missouri, Illinois, Kentucky, North Carolina, South Carolina, now Alabama.
Okay, international's next. That's why I said viral and virtual.
Yeah, it's fun.
That's what's up. Up. So I know income tax is not the only thing that you do. So let's talk a little bit about you. I know some of y'all may already know that over here we deal with multiple streams of income because our brains, we're just gifted with the ability to focus on more than one thing.
Yes.
So what else do you do, Miss Ma'am?
I am the owner and staffing coordinator at Halo Home Care here in Madison. I am also a crypto enthusiast. I've written 2 ebooks out there on Amazon and 13 other publishing companies. Just put in Shamica Johnson crypto, it's going to populate. As other than those things, I have another home care agency that we are in the process of opening up in Winston-Salem, North Carolina. Home assisted living opportunities, doing business as Halo Home Care.
Congratulations.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Okay, I don't know why, but my spirit just said franchise. Franchise didn't sell. Franchise, that sucker didn't sell it all. Okay.
I don't want to sell it. I love it.
Franchise it, sell it all.
Well, yeah, of course, let other people.
Make another one.
I'm actually getting calls. I kid you not.
I just told you, the spirit told me franchise.
I kid you not.
Franchise. And then sell it. Yeah. Because we just finished talking about selling businesses. So.
Well, you want to tweak things and have it perfected before you even entertain a thought of franchising. But I am getting calls.
The franchise part, That's what I'm talking about. Okay, you guys, so let's get straight into income tax. So last time we talked a little bit about the basics that an entrepreneur needed to get together in order to be prepared for income tax.
Yes.
Now we're going to get a little bit more into the nuts and bolts of income tax. So let's start off with, how do you help Schedule C? First of all, what is a Schedule C client? Let's back it up just a little bit.
A business owner, someone that's self-employed. You may be a mobile barber or a hairdresser, or you may do body waxing. Where you're self-employed and doing business for yourself.
So the form that they would fill out for that income is a Schedule C?
It would be a Schedule C, like a profit and loss for the business.
So they would still have their 1040, whatever,
of course,
for their personal income, and then they have the business income. I just wanted to roll it back for you guys who are not familiar that much. I had to let my little accounting nerd pick through just a little bit. But we want to make sure you guys understand that we're talking to you.
Yes.
You entrepreneurs are Schedule C clients when it comes to income tax.
Yes.
And if you haven't filed your taxes, it may be why you don't know, but that's where we're going with that.
Yes.
So how can those clients maximize their deductions while staying compliant? Because we're not trying to get audited down the road.
I know. Thank God I've not ever had an audit. I've had many people come to me that's under audit, and I tell them I do not go behind another tax preparer. I do not go behind another accountant.
Because now you're taking that liability on yourself.
That's a no.
I don't blame you.
That's a no. Even though I'm licensed and bonded, I do not go behind another tax preparer.
We don't want to use that insurance if we don't have to. I don't blame you. That's a very good business strategy to have, because I'm sure there are firms that specialize in that.
Yes.
So let them go to someone who's willing to take on that. I can imagine it's time consuming as well, and you would have to create a whole different pay structure to make your time worth doing that.
It has to make sense.
It has to make sense. Didn't we say income tax that makes sense?
It has to make sense.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so what are some things that they can do to maximize their deductions while staying compliant?
Well, first of all, you maximize by ensuring that every single expense is accounted for.
Okay.
I have tax clients that will come to me, and it's okay. There's no shaming, because that's what I'm here for. They may not have any of their receipts. However,
I got about half of mine.
those purchases were purchased on a card, most likely. So, and like I said, I don't want to be all over the place, but in order to ensure that they maximize, you have to keep a good accounting of what you're spending
Okay.
on your business, because of course you're able to write those deductions off. Some people will come to me and just say, I made this amount of money and have 0 receipts.
Oh.
What I do is I sit down, it's almost like a strategy call, because we're discussing, okay, you made this amount of money, however, you had to put something out outside of your time, your material, let's just say a hairdresser, all of the shampoos, conditioning, everything, your vehicle depreciation, driving back and forth. You may be going to someone's home or going to, let's say, an event and doing someone's hair. You want to write off everything. If you have office space, you want to maximize every deduction that you have. So that is the starting point. That's one. Every expense. People do not realize you can write off your vehicle mileage. If you're driving to and fro, if you know you're there 5 days a week, you take that 5, you multiply it, by how many ever days that you're there throughout the year, and you know your distance from your home to your salon, or wherever, whether you're a barber, a vet, or whomever. If you have your own business, you want to utilize every deduction. When I'm sitting down with clients and let them know that you are actually eligible to write off from A to Z, they can't believe it.
Wow.
They structure their businesses, however, may not have the education on the tax structure, which that's what I'm here for. And every client I've ever started with bring more people each year. This is why I do not advertise, and I'm not saying that in a cocky manner,
Right.
but I do not have to advertise because I do right by them.
Right. I can imagine that how many entrepreneurs we're still trying to do our own taxes
Yeah.
and not understanding the deductions and things like that.
Yes.
Wow. So for those that don't save their receipts, what advice would you give to them?
Well, like I said, we can reconstruct your expenses. You have to have a general idea of how much money you're spending on your expenses. So that's what you would do. And that is totally legal by the IRS. You can reconstruct your income. I have forms that I complete, and after we communicate, myself and the client, I have a list. I talk to them, get an approximate amount of these things. And then, of course, me being me, I will how can I say it, not so much as lead them, but I will ask, are you sure you didn't purchase X, Y, Z? Because there are so many expenses. Even though it's your business, it's supposed to be your baby, your money, a lot of people do not keep a good accounting of all the money that they spend. If you are on assignment, or if you're working in your office or in your home, either place, and you have a structured business, whether it's an LLC, a single member LLC, and S Corp, or just a Inc., sole proprietor, you want to ensure that for your best tax benefit, you have every single dollar that you have spent allocated for, so that way you can get it, you can write off those expenses.
Right. I feel like it goes back to our first video of the basic things, and that's the business bank account.
Yes.
Because even if you don't save the receipts, you've used your business bank account to make all the transactions. So now you can just pull your statements. That's something I had to learn the hard way.
Yes.
Because when I started off, I used whatever account had money in it.
Well, I've been there also. But let me tell you, having a business account, if we can discipline ourselves to have a business account so it's separate from your personal, it is the easiest way to create your profit and loss.
Yeah.
Because you're just going in there in your history and typing in receipt. It's going to pull every single receipt for every expense. It just makes it so much easier.
So people, get that business bank account, and like she said, be disciplined to pull, to use all the transactions through that. So what I've had to learn is, even though I have money over here, I needed to transfer that money to the business bank account and then make the transaction out of the business bank account. So learn from my hard way, because honey, when I go to do my taxes, it ain't gonna be fun.
Ooh, Lord.
And the thing about it is, I just keep dreading it and procrastinating and making it worse and worse. Yeah, we have.
Yeah.
I know you're going to
I'm
give
still
us a
getting
solution
calls.
for that.
I'm still getting calls.
I know we're gonna talk about that. Okay, so
Yes.
can you give us an example of how you help? Oh, we kind of covered this already. Self-employed clients lower their tax bill through smart tax strategies.
And the smart tax strategy is receipts, receipts, receipts. Try to keep an accounting, even if you're traveling, if you have to fly somewhere, if anything that's tied to your business, your lunch, if you're having breakfast with someone and it's related to your business, we as people, again, it goes back to our first session. I am not saying write off 100% of every expense. You want to show income. However, if your business is not profitable X amount of years, it is good to show that. So that way when it is profitable, you can see the climb. I'm never going to tell someone, oh, well, you made $100,000, you spent $60,000, but hey, let's write off $70,000. And you want to show $20,000 income. What can you get with
Right,
that?
because now it's a strategy. Because now we
to-
have to think about is what the bank is going to
wanna-
look at when they
exactly.
look at that income. Like it might help you over here, but it's going to hinder
Yes.
you over here, and that's why the strategy.
Yes.
It's a strategy. It's not just go pay. And even as a commercial agent, when we're working with you, we ask questions. Do you have an accountant that you're working with?
Yes.
Who's your bookkeeper? Do you have a financial advisor? Are they involved in this transaction to make sure that you're putting this money where it needs to go, or that you're making the best decision? Your accountant might tell you now is not the best time to sell.
Oftentimes, there are no accountants. Oftentimes, businesses are not structured as they should be. It's, again, I have to ensure that I am staying aligned with who I am in my position. I am not an accountant. I am not a CPA. I am a certified tax preparer. However, some of the work that comes to me are for those two categories. And also in the category as like a financial advisor. I can advise and tell you what I deem would be a better fit for their business. I can do that. However, it's when you have someone to sit down and they do make a lot of money, they feel that, okay, I have it together. That's not always the case.
We're smart in one area, but not so much somewhere
We can
else.
make a lot of money, but you could be saving a lot of money as well.
Gotcha.
Utilizing, the correct, strategies with,
Right.
being smart with your money and expenses, as well as reporting and, making sure they document. A lot of clients do not document things, so they forget. That's
Right.
why we write it down.
Right.
It's there somewhere.
So you guys, these are all things that you can do that's going to help lower your tax bill. So let's hit on something that I hear, or we hear quite often. The person that wants to write off everything to lower their tax bill,
Yes.
and we just mentioned that.
Yes.
That's not always the best strategy, depending on
Yes.
what you're doing.
Yes.
What about that person that goes out and gets a G-Wagon because they can write it off to reduce their taxes?
And for that, it's all based on the weight of the vehicle. So,
and the strategy, so what I forgot to mention is that every industry has different common write-offs. And
of course, and you can reach back also.
Right. So
yes.
there's no reason for a stylist needing a G-Wagon. That would be different than somebody in construction. It has to make sense for your industry.
The IRS will flag it if it doesn't make sense. So for me, you can't just bring anything and lay it in front of me. And no, I'm just being honest. I pass on a lot of tax clients. I have to. Because again, I've not ever been audited. I love my record as it is. And when you are under audit, from there on, you're going to be, because I know tax preparers that deal with it. I've not ever dealt with it. So there has to be order. So you can go out and get your G-Wagon, but you can't bring your paperwork to me as, just saying, do not get me wrong, some hairstylists can afford to buy a G-Wagon, but that doesn't mean you can write it off. Because it has to truly make sense for your business.
Thank you.
Yes.
I always want you guys to explain that to people.
Yes.
Because the worst thing they can do is take the advice from someone that has done it.
Yes.
And that person has not filed their taxes, so they haven't really, or they're taking their taxes to someone who is being too liberal and creating a problem for themselves.
$30,000 tax refunds and things like that.
Yeah, so I try to hit on that because as someone that has an accounting degree,
Yes.
we are taught to be conservative.
Yes.
And even in tax preparation,
Yes,
you're taught
always.
to be conservative. And I tell people, when you see people being audited or you see celebrities that are, have millions of dollars of back taxes, it's more than likely they had someone who was being very liberal with the write-offs.
Of course.
And then they got audited.
That's the case. And I can use myself as a reference. There are many, many things I can write off, but that doesn't mean I'm going to write off every
everything.
single thing. I want to show income. I have to show income for my goals. Yet, I'm going to write off what makes sense. I'm going to write off the things that I know need to be documented that I've utilized. And then some of the things like, okay, well, no, I'm not going to chip it all the way down and just say, okay, I made this amount of money and I spent that, every dime that I made. That does happen some years, but that doesn't mean for me personally, I'm going to write every single thing off that I've spent.
Because it doesn't match the strategy.
It has to make sense.
Now, what about, because I've heard people say that they write off the expenses for their hair and their nails and their outfits.
That is totally legal.
Okay.
Yes.
And for throughout your whole career, or is it only
if it has to do with your business, every single thing that we're wearing, the same with yourself, we are able to write it off because you're wearing this and look, you're shooting today. So it is a part of your business. Same thing with me. It is a part. So yes, it is totally legit.
Okay. All right.
Yes.
All right. So what advice do you give Schedule C filers to prepare better for tax season to avoid any surprises?
Try to keep up with their documentation. I can't
We
stress
have
it enough.
one simple instruction.
Seriously, when it boils down to it, actually, I love Schedule C, and it's not because it's just so easy, because there are a lot of moving parts to a Schedule C, just like an S Corp. There are a lot of moving parts, yet just because you made money, there's a 15.3% tax on Schedule C.
Okay.
So if you do not keep up with records or at least have a memory of what you're spending, you're going to always owe. And we're going to be attaching a 9465 to that tax return asking for a payment agreement, if the person can't write a check or, set up, for them to direct debit from their account.
Wow.
So number one, that is what I always arm them with. If you do not have receipts, if you do not have an accounting for your monies and where they've gone, it's going to make my job harder because I can't just make up things that you spent, because God forbid there, is an audit. They're going to want some real documentation to support it. And it stops with me because I'm saying I'm reviewing these things or I've reconstructed these things. And if I did not and, do it, that it falls back on me. It'll have me under review, not just the client.
Right.
So not only making sure that they keep up with their expenses, I will always say separating the personal from business accounting. It is very important. Even if you buy something with cash, do your best to keep some kind of documentation. Another thing also, some businesses should not be structured as, self-employed and do Schedule C. And that's another interview. However, I am taking into account to be able to, with my long-term clients, to let them know it's time to model your business as something different because this really isn't working for you, especially the ones that have grown over the years.
Right. Now it's time to go from an LLC to
like an S Corp because it may make better sense and your tax liability is going to be less as well if the IRS authorized them to be able to make that change.
Okay, so that's a good adjustment you want to make.
Yes.
And because we cover everything over here. We have one more question, but we pretty much answered it.
Okay.
So what if your tax client hasn't kept good receipts or good records throughout the year? What do you do in a situation and where they have expenses but no proof of the expense?
We reconstruct the expenses.
There you go.
Yes, that is what we do. Clear cut. We reconstruct.
Didn't we say this was simple?
Yeah, it is.
No confusing lingo.
It really is simple.
Just straight talk. It is so simple.
Yes.
And if you're looking for somebody who make tax, it's simple.
Yes.
They need to call you.
Yes, they do. They do.
She's virtual and she's viral, but she's still taking clients because look, what's
Yes.
next is employees and all that good
Yes,
stuff. So
seriously.
growth, it doesn't stop.
It does not stop, not ever.
Well, I appreciate you joining us, you guys. That's a wrap for today's game-changing episode. Big shout out to you, Shamica, for dropping the knowledge with clarity and care. Taxes does not have to be scary, not when you have the right team.
That's right.
So keep growing with us at Royal Owners Academy, where we keep you informed, inspired, and always moving like a boss. You guys, we'll see you in the streets.